First class traveling, super smart people, and big bucks. That's the glorious life of consulting. But wait, I've been in consulting for a few years now, and there's so much people don't talk about. So today I'm going to spill all the tea and tell you the truth about consulting. Hey everyone, my name is Hisham and welcome to Income Over Outcome, your go-to source for all the college and career resources that you need. Now, if you keep up with my channel, you know I've made a ton of videos talking about consulting. I've even walked you guys through what I do on a daily basis and given you real-life examples of projects I've worked on. But the truth is, consulting isn't as glamorous as it seems. I mean, sure, the pay is great and you learn a ton on the job, but the field can also be insanely competitive and so many people are worked to their core and they get burnt out in a really short amount of time. By watching this entire video, you'll get a really good picture of what working in consulting is actually like, and hopefully it'll help you figure out if you're someone who might like consulting or not. Now, as consultants, we say there's 4 things that make or break the job. Those being travel, your team, the work, and your client. For the job to be the best possible, all 4 of those things have to be well balanced and align with what you enjoy. But of course, in reality, that almost never happens.
Well, that ain't good.
As you watch this video, comment your thoughts. Do you think consulting is worth it? Does anything I say shock you? And would you go into consulting? Let me know in the comments because I'm always interested to see what you all are thinking. One of the biggest reasons people want to join consulting is because you get to travel to all these new cities and see a bunch of cool things. And honestly, it's nice for a little bit, especially when it's your first job out of college and you start getting upgraded to first class and get to go into all these cool hotel lounges. I definitely enjoyed traveling when I first started, but honestly, I didn't realize the impact it was having on my body until I stopped traveling in 2020. See, travel days are really long. You have to take an early morning flight out on Mondays, and for most people, that means waking up at 6 a.m. and heading to the airport. You'll spend a few hours flying, and you'll probably have some work to do, so it's not like you can just take a nap and relax while you're on the plane. And then once you land, you head over to the client's office where you do more work and attend meetings. So travel days can easily be over 12 hours long. And on Thursdays when you're heading home, it's not much better. You usually don't leave the client's office until around 5 p.m. So that means if you're traveling from a client somewhere in the Midwest like Chicago to your home in New York, you won't get home until at least 10 p.m. And we used to do that every single week, which means we only got 3 non-travel days to actually rest. And looking back on it, I would easily get tired and always had to take midday naps. All of a sudden, when I stopped traveling, I had all this energy I didn't have before. Even though I didn't realize it in the moment, and I actually enjoyed it at the time, traveling was having a real impact on my body. And it can't be a good thing to do over a long period of time. It also sucks for people who have actual families and things to do at home, because traveling really takes a lot of time away from all of that. I spent an ungodly amount of time sitting around in airports and planes that could have been way more productive if I was doing something else. But luckily, clients and consulting firms have realized that over the last 2 years. They've realized that a lot of consulting work can be done remotely, so weekly travel is a huge waste of time and money. Nowadays, travel pretty much just depends on the needs of the client, so it's much less burdensome. Most of the people I know have really minimal travel. We're talking once every other week or even once a month. But there's still definitely some people out there who are beginning to travel every single week. And if you're going into consulting, I bet you're going to have at least one of those projects. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind. Another thing people don't talk about when it comes to consulting travel is that most of the time, you won't be going to some super cool exotic place. A lot of clients are in really small cities with not much going on. I've been to cities like Sioux City, Iowa and Boise, Idaho for work, which is not the type of glamorous travel that people envision when they think of consulting. Of course, there's bound to be some cool travel locations. I mean, I know people who have had clients in Miami, so they spent all of their time out on the beach when they weren't working. But for every cool place you get, I bet there's going to be 10 that you would rather not travel to. So that's all to say that traveling can be a cool perk of consulting, but there's a lot of downsides that people don't normally think about. And you most definitely shouldn't go into consulting just for the travel. Now, the next thing that can make or break consulting is your team. aka the people that you work with. Consulting is a melting pot of really smart, high-achieving people from a bunch of different backgrounds. And that might sound like the perfect work environment, but that means there's a bunch of different personalities in one place. And at some of the bigger consulting firms, that leads to really cutthroat competitive environments where people are only interested in getting ahead and growing their careers. I've had managers who are trying to get promoted, so they were just looking out for themselves with zero regard for the rest of the team. It was one of the hardest times of my career where I seriously considered quitting consulting because this manager would give us a ton of useless work to do and had insane expectations. This man would ask me for things at 8 p.m. on a Friday and randomly call me out of the blue to ask me really dumb questions. It was so bad that everyone this manager supervised would regularly get together just to talk crap about him. But at the end of the day, we just sucked it up and kept working. Before we move on, make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button because I'll be posting a bunch more videos about consulting, college, and careers, and we can't have you missing all of that. As I was saying, the managers you have in consulting can really make or break your experience. Some of them are actually really good at looking after their teams and pushing back on clients if they feel like the work they ask for is unreasonable. But because of the competitive nature of consulting, you'll find that there's a lot of people who like to work super hard, long hours, and they end up pushing that onto their teams. Luckily, you can switch managers every single project, so if you have a bad manager, you don't have to deal with them forever. But even beyond managers, you're going to be surrounded by people who are really competitive. Everyone has their own ambitions and goals, so no one is going to look out for you or your career except yourself. This is true for a lot of careers out there, but even more so in consulting. It's really important that you stay on top of your career goals and find the proper mentors within the firm who can help you. No one is going to give you advice to help you improve yourself unless you ask. And you're definitely not going to get a promotion unless you make it known that you want one. If you don't do that, you'll find it's going to be difficult to move up. And in consulting, if you don't progress in your career, you're going to get let go. And that might sound harsh, but the truth is consulting firms really want people who have goals and then push towards them. Going into a competitive industry like that is shocking and stressful for a lot of people. But if you're a go-getter, you might actually thrive in consulting. When it comes to actual consulting work, of course your project should be something that you actually find interesting. But I'll be honest, because you change projects so often, you're bound to be on some that you don't enjoy. And that's totally fine. You don't have complete control over the projects that you're put on, but eventually you should be able to figure out what types of projects you like best. And if you're at a good company with people who are willing to support you and your career goals, then they should help you get onto the projects that you enjoy. The more important aspect here is work-life balance. Like I hinted to earlier, your company culture and team have a huge impact on how much you work. With traveling included, most consultants put in around 70 to 80 hours per week. But excluding travel, surveys show that most consultants average 56 hours a week, which is around 10 hours a day, and it's not all that bad. But of course, at some of the more competitive firms like McKinsey and Carney, you end up working more. At those firms, people average over 63 hours per week. So if you're going into consulting, know that it's not going to be like your normal 9-to-5 job. There's probably going to be times where you're working on an Excel model at 9 p.m. or get pulled into a meeting at an ungodly hour in the morning. You need to expect and be prepared for things like that. But a huge mistake I notice a lot of people, especially those early on in their consulting careers, make is overextending themselves way beyond what's reasonable just to make a good impression. It's easy to let people take advantage of you early on in your career because you don't know any better, and it happens all too often in consulting. I've definitely learned from that mistake and realized that if you want to survive in consulting, you really need to advocate for your time and push for things that you want to do in your personal time. You should never let work get in the way of you living your life, and any good company or manager is going to understand that. Now let's say you lucked out. You're on a project that has you traveling to a really cool place, you really like your team, and you're not working a ton of hours. Even if all that is great, if your client sucks, your life is going to be miserable. Working with clients is one of my favorite parts of the job, but it's both a blessing and a curse. A lot of the times clients have super high expectations, which is totally fair because they're paying us all this money. Obviously, they want a good return on their investment, and project leadership wants to go above and beyond to impress the client as much as possible so they can win more work. But problems come about when clients try to walk over the consulting team and ask for unreasonable things or expect super rushed deadlines. I had a client ask for updates on the model that spent weeks to build. They wanted the updates in just a few hours, and I swear I lost like 10 pounds from the amount I sweat trying to meet that deadline. Some clients also really hate the idea of working with consultants and are just doing it because they're forced to by their leadership, which makes the job really hard and challenging, but dealing with difficult clients is the name of the game. A huge part of consulting is learning to navigate different personalities and charming clients so that they grow to like us and want to work more with us. It's also super important to push back on clients if they're being too unreasonable, all the while still being respectful and professional, which, as you can imagine, is a really fine line. And honestly, this is probably the hardest part of the job to get used to. But if you're someone who can get along with anyone and your clients like you, then you'll absolutely make a killing in consulting. At the end of the day, every job has its downsides, and I've definitely had times where I was totally rethinking consulting. But studies show that 80% of consultants recommend the job, and I'm one of those. As long as you learn how to navigate the consulting world and advocate for yourself, it can be a really fulfilling career. So let me know your thoughts on consulting, and be sure to check out incomeoveroutcome.com and make sure you're subscribed and like this video if you haven't already. I'll see you next time, but until then, peace.